Jennifer Gray. Thank you so much
Yes,
for coming to the show. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here.
thank you. I'm
Um,
so happy to be here. And I've been
yes,
looking forward to this for a while. Ever since
me
I met you,
too.
I wanted to do this with you, for myself, because I just thought you're such an extraordinary person. From the moment I met you, I just was like, I'm
Mhm.
down with whatever she wants to do.
And can I just say,
Ditto on that, by the way.
oh, honey,
Right? I'm not wrong.
I mean, for real.
hmm,
Yeah. And I
but
can't, I got to tell you, I can't say that about a lot of people.
Uh,
You might be the only one in the room.
I would like to be that only one. I
yeah,
would like
that's
to
a
be
good
that
only
only
one, isn't
one.
it?
Yes.
Hmm.
I have all kinds of wonderful things to say about you that I'm going to say during the interview, but I'm going to ask you first to pick a number between 1 and 3. I have these amazing interview cards. It's a deck of cards. I've divided them into 3 piles,
Mhm.
and I don't know what's written on them. You're going to pick a number. I'm going to pull the top card. 1 and 3.
3.
Okay.
It's the go-to number.
It is. You know why? Triangle.
Eh,
Yes.
Almost everybody has it three.
Father, Son, Holy Ghost.
Yeah. The card says, Jennifer Gray, when you have to study for a test, what is a proven successful method?
Well, if you're referring to my days in school,
I think so.
that was never pretty. That was never pretty. I had the ADHD
Mm,
undiagnosed, and it was really hard. But because I have the ADHD, I actually perform well under pressure.
mm-hmm.
And so if I was leaving it to the last minute, I would just get into that hyper focus, and the anxiety and the pressure were my friends,
Yeah.
and they were the things that provided the rocket fuel to
Mm-hmm.
laser in. And i I didn't know any of these things when I was a kid, but I also have auditory processing.
Uh-huh.
And so I knew that I was a visual person, because I can't process. It's weird because the auditory processing means you really can't process audio. And
Right.
so for me, if I'm writing, I can speak, but I can't take in. But when I hear stuff, I actually got my hearing tested once at the house clinic because I thought I needed hearing aids a couple of years, like maybe 5, 10 years ago. And they said, you're never going to need hearing aids as long as you live. And I said,
Wow.
what do you mean? And I said, I can't, I watch movies with my husband. I'm like, what did he say? What did he like? And I'm the one going, what? And they said, no, it's not your hearing. Your hearing is beyond perfect. And I
Mm.
said, well, if my hearing's perfect, what is it? And they said, it's something else. And
Yeah.
what they were implying was it was my brain. And so it was really hard for me. So I like to write things out. I like to
Yeah.
learn lines by writing them. Sometimes I write my lines for a scene a million times. So that's what I can tell you, is that cramming and highlighting and
Mhm.
writing, and then having people test me
Yeah.
a lot, because it takes a while to get it from like being able to see it, and then I also have to make sense of it, and I
Yeah.
have to make stories about it. I can't learn anything just by rote. I have to make it a story.
Wow. That's a lot of prep.
That's a lot of an answer.
Yeah, but it's also that's a lot of preparation. So that's also part of it, right? Is being prepared.
It's more like I really, really like to perform well.
Yes.
And so the fear of not performing well in any situation, whether it's on set or in Dancing with the Stars or anything, I just feel like I need more rehearsal and prep than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I definitely need more than the average bear.
That's what I said about drugs. Like when I have my kids, I'm like, I'm going to need a lot more of that Demerol than you give to most people because I have a very high tolerance and a very high metabolism. Anyway, so yes, thank you for that, Jennifer Gray. So I'm Laura Cathcart Robbins. This is the only one in the room, but I'm never the only one in this room because, as usual, my boyfriend, producer, and co-host Scott Slaughter, who I call Hun, is here as well.
Hi,
I
hi.
love her. I love her.
I love her.
I like that.
Um, I like that too. We are talking, honey, to Jennifer Grey, who is best known for her iconic portrayal of Baby
Mm-hmm.
in the beloved film classic Dirty Dancing, which earned her a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress, and for her breakout role as Matthew Broderick's sister in the John Hughes film Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Numerous film, television, theater credits. They all span decades. More recently, she starred in the acclaimed series Red Oaks and won season 11, Dancing with the Stars, which made me cry. And I want to talk about that. I watched it on YouTube just recently, and I literally had tears in my eyes. So are you teaming up now, Jennifer, with Lionsgate on the long-awaited Dirty Dancing sequel?
Yes. Yeah. I'm executive producing and playing Baby as an older person
Amazing.
as a person who's no longer a child.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And her new memoir, Out of the Corner, is a New York Times bestseller. So, first of all, just salam, all hail, congratulations. That's incredible. That's incredible. And I actually want to talk about this right now, because you kind of just let me into it with your talk about how you want the performance anxiety, and you want to prepare so that you worked your book when it first came out. I saw you on, every time I turned on my television, you were on GMA, you were on The View, you were on Tamron Hall, and late night shows. Like, you were on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that is, first of all, that's like really, like, you're fortunate, right, to be invited on all those shows, but that's a lot of work to do all of that. And I started your book on a Sunday. Scotty and I were flying back from a podcast conference. And so we had a layover, which I don't like. I don't like to lay over. I like direct flights.
Who likes a layover? Just tell me.
I don't know. But we had a layover.
People who like Cinnabon or something.
Right. Shade on Cinnabon. But at the layover, I switched books. I finished one book and I started yours. And we were in Salt Lake City. We were going to land in California. And how long was that, hon? Like
the layover,
2.5 hours or something?
Yeah, probably 2.5 total.
Not total with the layover.
Mm-hmm.
I finished your book that night. Like, I started it during the layover.
You binged it.
I binged your book.
You binge read it.
Oh my goodness.
I have to say, I have heard that so consistently that people are reading it in a sitting, and then they're saying that they can't stop, and then they don't want it to end. No. And that, to me, that's all I ever want from a book, is to have it hold me down by my hair until it's done with me. Right. And then I mourn the loss of it. And I'm like,
hold you down by your hair. Yes.
But if a book lets me up, I just feel like it's like, and I can't literally think of a better compliment, because that's what I want in a book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it is such a page turner. I don't even want to use that word with it, because I feel like it's overused, but I mean, I was in it with you. I was in it first of all, I was a fan. I'm also, your friend. So I was observing it from that point, but we're not that good friends like that. You would have to be a fan. Like, we barely know each other, and I immediately liked you, but it's not like you had to out of courtesy or it's different than when you're friends with someone a long time. I got to read their book. No, it was incredible. I mean, for anyone who hasn't read it, which feels like it must be just a few people now, because it's a New York Times bestseller.
I think there are a few people who haven't read it. I think we could
get
sales up.
Go get this book.
So you can also listen to it on Audible, which a lot of people I know are doing. So a lot of people have done both, and they're like, oh, I love to listen to it on the airplane, or I love to and so to me, it's just, I can't even believe that I'm even having this conversation with you, because I never wrote anything before. Right. And I barely finished school, and it's very unusual for me to be in this position, and I'm really thrilled, and it's a big deal.
It's a
you know,
huge deal. Yes.
but I don't even take it in, because really all I felt was the writing of it was took such Herculean effort to get that fish in the boat, that it was so intense and so relentless and so frustrating. And so, is this ever going to get done? Is this ever, like, this is the worst thing I've ever written. This is the worst thing I've ever read. Like, I was just like, I'd go from hating it to, I was like, I can't even believe anyone can get anything. This is not going to happen. So to me, the fact that I finished it was really the juicy part of it. Yeah. And this other thing is kind of like just a very nice feeling, but the intensity was in the finish and the doing.
Yes. Well, and how well, it seemed like you let us in on just about everything. It really felt like that to me.
There was a lot. Let me just put it this way. The hardest part for me was I knew I needed to tell the truth. I knew that why write a book? Why write a memoir if you're not going to tell the truth? I remember I talked to Jane Fonda about it, and I said, I can't believe how much your book and I relate. And she said, well, I think when we tell the truth, people connect to it. Mm-hmm. And if you're not going to tell the truth, why bother? And I was like, okay, I know I'm going to tell the truth. And at the same time, for me, the impossible part was, how do I tell my truth and not harm anyone? Mm-hmm. and be the like diehard codependent, trying to not be codependent for over 30 years, like working so hard at trying to just own my story, own my voice, and have a right to be able to tolerate people's disappointment in me or displeasure with me, or feeling upset with me. Anyone who knows me knows it is like my kryptonite. Yeah. So that was the hard part, because I could tell anybody privately anything that anyone I trusted, telling the truth was no big deal. But what was really hard was to ask myself, is this the truth? How I've been telling this for all these years? Is this did it even happen this way? Yeah. And then saying, well, what am I sure of? And usually all that I was sure of was the feeling that I had in the moment, because I couldn't remember scenes. But when I write dialogue in the book, it's actually dialogue. I didn't make it up. Mm-hmm. It was actual dialogue, but I couldn't remember anything around the dialogue. It was almost like I got branded with these intense, like little crystallized moments. Yes. And then I had to be honest with, like, I don't remember what else happened, or I don't know what happened, but next thing I knew, because I knew they were like, all the editors, like, you can take a license, you can imagine what was said. And I'm like, no, I can only say for sure what happened, what I remember, and knowing that my memory could be wrong, have a bias. Yeah. But it was like poking holes in it and asking myself, I just assume everyone's doing their best. Mm-hmm. And everyone in my book and everyone in my life, pretty much, like the people that I chose to be in my life and the people I was born into that world, like, they're all good people. There's nobody bad. Mm-mm. And what was interesting was, how do I take responsibility for my choices, and how did I put myself in harm's way, and how was I the architect of my own adversity as opposed to things happening to me?
I really feel like that came through. That's what
that was the hard part. Yeah, that's the hard part.
But it really felt like you were a very reliable narrator. You in out of the corner, I believe you because I trust you, because you're not putting the onus on other people all the time.
All I want to do is just look at everybody with the kind of generosity you would privilege someone who, if you were at their funeral, you know how all of a sudden you go to the funeral and you're just like, you know what? Who cares? Mm-hmm. This person I loved them. They were trying their best. They came from this. This was their story. And then to try to explain what I knew to be their people's history so that it would make sense why they would behave the ways they behaved based on what I knew, the trauma and childhoods and neglect and abuse that they had suffered, or the situation that they were in and the time they were in, how that would form them, and that was their best.
Yeah.
Always.
Absolutely.
It's really fun to do because it makes you love people in a different way, because you go, how could they have done it any better? How could they have done it any differently?
Yeah.
They couldn't have, and neither could I have, because we're always doing our best.
Yes. I mean, that's what we say, right? They're doing the best with what they can.
But I mean, to really feel it while you're writing it, you're like, to really just like, everyone is trying their best and people are frightened. And when people are frightened or damaged, they can't do better than they're doing. That's their best.
Right.
And that it's never like, I mean, there are bad people. We all know that. There are people who don't care about other people. There are people who are very, mentally, like, have personality disorders. We're not talking about that. We're talking about just your run of the mill, the price of doing business in this world.
Yeah. Well, and I would say, so you open the book with the story of your rhinoplasty that made you unrecognizable. And I know I told you this before, but it was over 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. I'm fuzzy on how long ago, but you and I have mutual friends, and we were both at a dinner party on Sunset Boulevard.
Did we talk about this?
I don't know if I told you this, but we were there the whole time. We were opposite ends of the table. You were like super vivacious and convivial. I was really enjoying you from my side of the table because you were telling stories. And it wasn't until you left and someone said your name that I realized who you were. I sat through the whole dinner not knowing that you were that Jennifer Grey.
Wait, was it John's birthday?
Yes. Yes.
Did we talk about this?
I don't know if we did or not.
Because I'm just picturing when I was ever at dinner, like on Sunset.
Yeah. It was
we
John's
were at
birthday.
that Italian restaurant.
Yeah. Exactly.
Soleil or Soul.
Soleil. Yeah. No.
That's just, did you ever tell me this?
I don't know. I feel like I must have, but
I don't think so. That's crazy. Okay. So, go ahead.
But
I guess I didn't know who you were either.
Right.
We were even.
We were even, except for I knew who you were from film, obviously, but I didn't recognize you there. So and what I was going to say about what you were saying about everybody doing the best you can, you're talking about this in the book, and you seem to have a lot of compassion for the plastic surgeon. You don't villainize him, even though it feels like for me as the reader, I wanted to villainize somebody because like you would ask for one thing and you got something else. So I wanted somebody to blame.
Right.
And I don't want to spend too much time on what happened, and you should read the book and find out how this happened, because it's not the way you think it happened, which was a surprise to me. I had a total different idea.
Nobody, I mean, I might be the only one in the room who had that happen.
I'm sure you are.
Because I was looking in every room I could find to find someone else who had a similar experience. And it seems to be my claim to fame because it was the weirdest thing. And it was so weird that no one believed that it was true, which was really annoying.
Right.
But you know what's weird about, there was, I once broke up with somebody and I could not get over them. And I was said to this friend of mine, I was like, what should I do? I just can't get over him. And we didn't have any fights and he was always good to me. And I don't know, we didn't really have any problems, but, and she said, why don't you just write, an inventory, write your resentments about him. And I was like, well, I don't have any resentments about him because he was just doing the best he could. And like with his circumstances, he couldn't do it. And she said, what would you resent if you had any self-esteem?
Oh, wow.
I was like, what? I beg your pardon? And that is what happened with the doctor.
I see.
I had people say, why didn't you sue him? Why didn't you? Because I'm so I'm so pathologically empathetic
Mm.
that I literally knew that this doctor would never want to have done what he did.
Yeah.
And this doctor was a kind person who was a good doctor. He wasn't evil. He wasn't, I think it happened as an accident that he didn't realize even what was happening. Because I think that can happen with surgeons. I think they get this thing where they have an idea of what they want to do. And I knew he was frustrated by me. I knew that he thought that he knew better what I should have. In a way, he did, if I hadn't already been so famous.
Right.
If I was just a person saying, listen, I want it this way, he could say, no, you don't. You want it like this. And when I look at my nose, how I was born, and I look at what I made him do the first time, and I look at what I look like now, he was right in terms of aesthetically, because that's all they are. They're just a car. They're just a mechanic who's fixing your car, right?
Right.
And he knows how the car is supposed to run. And he knows the way a face is supposed to be proportioned. And he knows the mechanics of how to make a shape of a nose. And I was so set on, you have to keep me looking like I look, which means my nose is dominant.
Right.
And my dominant nose made him do work that he really didn't feel 100% he could get behind, because it was too bulky. It wasn't, everyone has an ego and a feeling of, you're walking around with people are knowing that I was your doctor, and they're going to judge me by your nose.
Right.
Well, yes, that's narcissism. And there's a certain amount of narcissism that is in surgeons because of the ego that they have to go into your face and believe that they know what's best. And this nose it's okay. It's fine. It's better than the first one he gave me in terms of a nose. I just didn't want it. And I could say, all I could think of was, this guy is an old man. He didn't try to hurt me.
Yeah.
It just happened that way. And I had to, even though I couldn't make sense of it, I had to find a way to have a very radical acceptance of what was, because there was no going back. I mean, I was so anxious. I was never going to I could have had another surgery to put it back how it was, I suppose. I just was so traumatized, and it was like I had lost all faith. And I also think that in this day and age, people have nose jobs all the time to do what I wanted, but I don't think they knew how to do that then. And nobody with a Jewish nose, the way my nose was structured, nobody could do that in a way where it's better. But I don't know. I think I might have been asking for the impossible at the age and stage in my life that I was at. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And I mean, but you were happy the second time.
I was not happy.
You weren't.
I was devastated.
No, but the first time.
I was thrilled. I was as thrilled as I was devastated the next time.
Yeah. And
I was like, you know what? It's not perfect. I don't care. Right. I'm just so happy because I was getting work, and it worked, and my mom had been right. And it wasn't that I wasn't lovable. It was just that it was hard to photograph, and it was hard to cast me. And it was stopping me from having more options. Yeah. And it did everything. And I couldn't believe that I had resisted it for so many years. And I was just like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. And I basically trusted this human being. But when the little piece of cartilage started to poke out, looking like a white knuckle, like here on the end of my nose, it was just like a white pimple. It was so not, I could not leave it. Yeah. So I said, what do I do? And he's like, oh, it's nothing. I always have to do that. And it's true. Almost everyone I know who went to that doctor had a follow-up. So there was nothing that was out of the ordinary with this situation. And my trust was so complete.
Yeah.
And he was I like a savior, I like someone who can swoop in and fix something and do the impossible and just make my dream come true. So I just I didn't even tell anyone because I didn't think it was anything. I thought it was just a nothing thing. Yeah. So that's the trauma and the trust issues that are very, very pre-existing and long-lasting. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I love all the layers of your answers to me today. You're giving me the answer, and then you're going deeper and giving me like the
That's
why.
just how my brain works. So if you're looking for a
No, I
soundbite, I'm so
appreciate it.
sorry. If you're looking for a shorter answer,
No, you
you
gave me
got
great
the wrong
sound bites
girl.
too. No, and so I want to talk to you about a few things. I don't know, honey, how are we on time?
Honey.
Okay. It's not gonna be enough time. So I'm gonna edit
Okay,
what I want to talk to you about.
I'll make shorter answers.
So Matthew Broderick, he was your co-star in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Mm-hmm. You two were engaged, which I didn't know. Mm-hmm. I didn't know you were engaged. Mm-hmm. So the timing of this was like, you had done Ferris Bueller, obviously. You had finished Dirty Dancing. It was in the can. It's coming up to premiere. You two are in Ireland. There's a horrific car accident. He's really hurt and unable to leave there for a while. Your premiere is coming up, and you're torn.
I think a week later or 10 days later.
Mm-hmm. And you're torn. Do I leave this man who doesn't want you to leave? And go and be, this is your big moment. You're the star mm-hmm. of this movie. Mm-hmm.
It's my first. My first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a sleeper hit because when I went to Ireland, I did not think it was going to be a hit. Right. There was no music happening that was saying it was about to be huge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got to New York and saw the front page of the New York Times that it was, what is happening here?
Right. And you were about to be an instant star. Mm-hmm. Like, so what I felt when I was reading this was like, you weren't allowed to enjoy your own success then, or you weren't able to.
100%.
So tell me about that and what that was like for you then. Because I was really, you talked about it, but I'm just curious as to how it was for you and how you think it impacted you.
It's not dissimilar. You know that expression, how you do anything is how you do everything?
Yes.
Well, it's not dissimilar from what I was just saying, which is it was so much easier for me to think about taking care of someone else, especially in the situation he was in.
Yeah.
Than it would be to, like, I've never been comfortable or had much experience having it be about me and making a big splash and getting a lot of attention and actually eclipsing someone mm-hmm. who's already, like, if I'm power down, if I'm character actress and supporting and the girlfriend of a famous person or the daughter of a famous person, I am so conditioned and wired to be the satellite.
Yes.
I'm so, it's so in my DNA, so much more comfortable for me to be the plus one mm-hmm. and to be the person and it was not, I didn't have a lot. I had my mom in my life who was like, you have to take your shape. You have to claim your moment. You deserve this. This is yours. And I had so many complicated, and still to this day, it's very, very hard to change very, very deep conditioning where it just feels scary. Yeah. It feels very threatening to me to take the oxygen, to be that person, to be big, to come fully out of the corner and be smack in the center of the room and all eyes on me has never felt comfortable. It feels like people will not love me, that it's not, I've never felt 100% like it would be a safe place to be. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was a little kid, I remember watching the Tom Jones show with my housekeeper, Nellie, that I write about a lot in the book.
Yeah.
So she was like my big sister because she was only a couple of years older than me. Oh no, she was like 18 when I was 4.5, but she was always like a big sister, right?
Yeah.
And so we'd watch the Tom Jones show. And I remember looking at the backup dancers and saying, that's what I want to be.
Oh yeah. You didn't want to be Tom Jones. You
I
wanted to be
wanted
the
to be,
backup.
one of many where I could do the dancing and have the performing, but without the pressure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Strange, right?
Yes. But I get that. I totally
You
get
do?
that. Yeah. I mean, I completely understand it. And I love that you just use out of the corner so beautifully in that, because to come out of the corner into the center is a scary place. But it was your moment.
It's just never been, even to this day.
Yeah.
It seems that there's the confluence of events where things seem to conspire, especially in my closest circles.
Yeah.
It doesn't always feel like something that is going to be celebrated.
Right.
And
Yeah.
maybe before I die.
Maybe before you die, which will be a long time from now.
We don't know. All I know is that it would be nice to know what it is like to.
Yeah.
It's just. It doesn't feel natural to me. And I look at people who really have no trouble claiming that, and I look at them like, how do they do that?
Well, and you talk about some female friendships that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Maggie Wheeler, Tracy Pollan, Madonna. I think of all of them as very strong, kind of commanding a room females. Would you say
They are.
that's
I mean,
accurate?
I'm super, super attracted to brilliance and talent and
Yes.
strength.
Yeah.
I have no people in my life who are not super strong. I'm
Mm-hmm.
super attracted to that. And if someone's like doesn't have that, it just doesn't have the same voltage for me,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know. And like Jamie Lee Curtis, like these people are,
Mm-hmm.
they're impressive, you know. And
I would
I
say
would
so.
say, yeah, they're super impressive, and I'm in awe of them. And we take turns with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say Madonna because she's not one of my main crew. She was a chapter, and
Yeah.
I was so the handmaiden with that, you know, that person. I was so not like, you know, I was her best friend for a couple of years there. And I was like, oh my God. But it was very clear, the hierarchy. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Well, she was Madonna when she came into your life.
She
Maggie
was
Wheeler
Madonna.
and Tracy, you knew them from school.
Maggie Wheeler and Tracy, I knew both since I was 14.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
still talk to them every week. They're
Oh,
still my girls.
I love your
And
posts to them too, like
well,
birthdays and all that stuff. Yeah.
they're such incredible human beings.
Mm.
And like who they are professionally is the least of it. They're
Yes.
such extraordinary friends and show up on such a consistent and deep basis, and they know everything about me
Yeah.
because they've been there, and
They've been there.
it's so reciprocal. It's just I'm only really interested in friends where it's really reciprocal,
Yeah.
and there's no, you know, there's no I don't know, just there's a level playing field.
Sure. And just for those of you who are looking it up, Maggie Wheeler was probably best known for being Janice on Friends. But she's been in a lot of,
Chandler Bing.
yeah.
Oh my God. That's not even a good impression, but
No, that was
yeah.
very good, actually.
And she's
And
not like that at all in life.
no,
Like
she's not. I mean, I've
that's the
seen
funniest thing
her.
about, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen her in person, but I've seen
I
her
mean,
being interviewed and
she has a choir, and like she's like the most earthy, the
yeah.
most un-Janice person, which is so fun, you know.
Great though. She's a great actress.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, I told you I was watching all those interviews with you. Almost everybody started with a question about Patrick Swayze.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything that no one asked you about him that you wanted to talk about? It seemed like they were all asking kind of the same thing.
Well, that's just what happens, you know. There's like, for some reason, it's just, I don't know what it is. Is there something you thought of that you wanted to ask me that you were curious why I didn't, like something like, why don't they ask this?
Oh, that's a really good question. they all seem to be kind of fixated on, there's a piece in the book, and I felt like you were actually misquoted on this, or they misread it, because it seemed to them like there was like unfinished business between the two.
Oh, yeah. They think I was apologizing for something.
Right.
And I wasn't. I was like,
you
dude,
weren't.
Take your time. Okay. I know you want to make it more soundbitey, but
yeah,
the fact is that it's that thing where when you're older and you're looking back,
yeah,
and you're basically going like, why can't we sit around and talk about like what we were like when we were young together? Because it would have been so fun to talk about, it's just to not have him here.
Yeah.
And people always wanted to make it into like there was this horrible thing between us. It wasn't like Officer and a Gentleman where Deborah Winger and he hated each other.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like hate looks so much more like love. It wasn't hate. We were just like we were in the movie. We were two people who didn't make sense together. We wouldn't have found each other if it hadn't been in this situation where we were pushed together.
Right.
And then, yet there's at the same time chemistry, which is always weird when you have chemistry that with somebody that you wouldn't naturally be with. And you're like, what? That's weirdly hot.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So there was always like, there was a sexy thing. It was kind of like, it was a sexy thing between us, but it was had more edge and energy around it, which makes it more interesting because it's not two people just trying to act hot for each other. We were dealing with struggles within our dynamic on the set, within our relationship, who's the star, who's late to set, who's, who smells like sour mash, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like who's prepared, who's not, that's just normal. But if you're having love scenes with that person and have a great director and it's just lightning in a bottle that creates a chemistry that doesn't make sense about. It's not like we were just so crazy for each other. All we wanted to do is fuck. We weren't like that. Can you say fuck on this? Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it wasn't like, God damn it, I wish they'd it was more like we're stuck together. It's an arranged marriage and we're going to make the most of it.
I love that.
And when, as an actor, I knew that there were a lot of things that were not, I wasn't a virgin. I hadn't been a virgin for like 75 years at that point. Like I was like, I didn't even like, I was playing an innocent who had never danced, and I had been dancing since I was young. Thank God I wasn't supposed to be a good dancer because I'm not good enough to pass as a good dancer, but there's no part of me that was an uncomfortable in my body, unsexual being.
Yeah.
So there was a lot to act. And so it was just like, it's just complicated and interesting. And so that's all it is. That's all I was saying is, wouldn't it have been fun to talk now about, how we were like, and that's like, wouldn't that be funny if he was just here and we could like, I don't know. I just always feel like when people are gone, you don't have that opportunity anymore.
It's so true. And that's how I read it. So I was surprised that it was being couched that way.
Because that's what the press does. They're about clickbait. They want to have a story that sounds more acrimonious, or they want to have it be more dramatic. And so they're just like, pumping up the volume.
Yeah. So
not like you.
Not like me. But there are really three more things I want to ask. What are we at, 10 minutes, hon? Okay.
He's cute.
Isn't he cute?
So cute.
Yes. Okay, so I want to talk about you and your dad for a minute, because you really make us fall in love with him in the beginning of your book. I mean, you're in love with him the whole time. Like you
I mean, it's been my whole life.
But when you're little, there's this really special relationship.
Correct.
That you two have. And tell me if you didn't feel like this, but in reading it and then watching Dirty Dancing, which Scotty will probably tell you, I watched for the first time after I read your book.
You're kidding.
I had never
That's
seen it.
So cool.
I know, isn't that crazy? I was like,
but I have to tell the truth. I
Of
had seen
course,
bits
always.
and pieces of it, but I was like, let me watch this movie
There's no shame in that.
I loved
No,
it.
no,
I
yeah.
loved it. But I felt like there were parallels between your relationship with your dad and your relationship, baby's relationship with her dad. Did you feel like that?
So, I mean, it's so ridiculously true
Okay, good.
because
Yeah.
I think what happens is, as a young woman, your dad is a god, right?
Yeah.
And as baby's dad, as I write in the book, because I write about what was similar about me and like why was I the right person for that. So very often, girls looked at their dad like a hero, and also he was my person, which is very similar to in the movie, because my sister was my mom's person, and in my
Right.
book and in my life, my mom and my brother were a team, and my dad. I don't know if that always happens, that people just decide in a family that like who's their number one and number two, and so my dad was my number one, and I wanted to be like him, and his value system was what I ascribed to. I wanted to be everything he ever wanted me to be.
Mm.
So what happens is when you're a kid, everything is about pleasing your parent because that's how you keep yourself safe and you stay alive. So you're orienting yourself. Your true north is your parent. And what happens, in my opinion, everything I say is my opinion, you can
Yes.
disagree with me, is that to individuate and to be your own person, there comes a time, usually around adolescence, where you start to individuate, you start to separate, and you start to have ideas that are not strictly straight from your parents' playlist.
Mm-hmm.
And there starts to be tension because the parents are completely unaccustomed
Right.
to you going off the trail, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a
And so
betrayal.
it's a betrayal,
Yes.
and you're like going off. You're basically saying, "Oh, I worked for you,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm going to work for myself,"
Yeah.
right? And when there is that rupture, and the ability to tolerate the disappointment or differentiation is how people mature.
Yeah.
And how they become their own person. And so that happens in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And with Penny and the abortion and lying to her dad and doing the right thing based on the values that he instilled in her.
Right. Right.
And at the same time, knowing that she was now in a dilemma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in my book, what happens is I start to do secret things and having a double life. Yes. As a burgeoning sexual being in New York City in 1970s, and getting into super adult stuff, and start having, I remember thinking like my whole life, like I've never lied to my parents. I have never lied to my parents, and sticking with that and being so proud of that is like the badge of honor. And then realizing there came a time when all of a sudden the pull, and I believe it's usually pretty chemical, hormonal. Mm-hmm. It's psychologically, you could set your watch to it.
Yeah.
And without that, you actually don't know where you begin and end, because you're just an appendage. You're just an extension of a parent. And there is that heartbreak of, it's like breaking up. You're breaking the covenant, the agreement.
Yeah.
And I think that when in healthy relationships, people can feel betrayed and feel like, who are you? I don't even know who you are. And then be able to repair and understand
grief,
that,
isn't there?
There has to be grief.
Yeah.
And it's grief because the person hasn't died. So it's more of that thing of the person that I thought you were is dead, and the person that you thought I was is dead.
Yes.
And are we able to rebuild a relationship on what we now know, which is a new thing.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Because I definitely saw that. You feel it when you read it. And then I'm glad I didn't see the movie until after I read the book, because then I was like, whoa, this is so similar. And you do allude to it in the book, but I couldn't compare it at that time. And so it was really cool to see that this part seemed like it was watching a little bit of your dynamic play out on screen. Like I was watching a piece of your memoir almost play out on screen,
Mm-hmm.
which was really cool.
When there's something more fascinating outside of the home,
yeah. Yes.
is when it begins,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned before that horrific car accident that you were in with Matthew Broderick in Ireland. How old were you then?
28.
28. Fast
It was this,
forward.
if that was 88,
Yeah. So
I think it was
yeah,
88. Yeah.
to I think you're 50. Is that right? When you're on Dancing with the Stars?
Mm-hmm.
So what you and I talked about probably 3 years ago when I first asked you to come on the podcast, you and I keep losing the same earpiece. Did you
The
notice that?
left
Yeah,
one.
the right one. Wait, now both of mine just came out. Wait, hold on a second.
I was like, are my ears getting like looser? Like, what is happening? Like,
I think like mine are too small. It like that keeps popping out the hole. Um, so we had talked about your surgeries
mm-hmm.
and your dancing. Like that was going to be the story you were going to tell, but you were like, wait, I'm
I
writing
had
this book.
I'd had 6 spinal surgeries, and I'd had 10 surgeries in I think in 2 years, however many years, 10 surgeries in a span of short period of time. Like nobody, like, who does that? And then does Dancing with the Stars, and then
Right.
wins. And then I had to have more surgery. So I didn't have 6 before. I had 3 spinal before, and then like 3 after. Yeah.
But the journey that you were on, so I'm sorry, the car accident, you messed it messed you up. It
Mm-hmm.
messed you up permanently, right? Like it,
But I didn't know.
but you didn't know.
I knew it was bad, and
Yeah.
I knew I was in pain, and I knew I was different. But I didn't know till I went to see the surgeon for Dancing with Us to find out that my head was actually hanging off my neck at the wrong
Right.
angle.
Which
Yeah,
is
and had
also
been for 20
incredible
years.
that you were in
Yeah,
chronic pain for
for over
that
20
long.
years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we're taking baths and like the kind of things that people do.
Chiropractors and
Yes. Yes.
acupuncture and just trying to. I'm terrified of seeing a surgeon because, and I could have been paralyzed by a chiropractor so easily based on what was going on, but it was also degenerating, so it was getting
Right.
worse
It
with
was
time,
getting worse.
and then it would be worse around anxiety and stress because of the muscles contracting, and then
Yeah.
it pulls on the bones, and then it pushes on the nerves. So it wasn't like every day was the same, but
Damn.
it was not my best physical. I just can't believe what happens is it happens gradually. And then you realize your life is getting smaller and smaller and smaller
Mm,
until you have the surgery. And then you realize
I can
that there's so
do.
much more expansiveness
Yeah.
and ability to freedom that you didn't know was getting to be really tiny.
Well, and then so to read about this, first of all, you and I had the conversation, so I knew about some of the surgeries. And not in depth, but I knew that these had been happening to you and that you had been in pain. And then to read about it in the chronology of the pain, the car accident, the pain, then the surgeries, and then Dancing with the
Do
Stars.
you see why I needed to write the book before I talked to you?
Yes, yes, I
Because
do.
I wasn't my only story.
No, it wasn't. But I had no idea that there was this wealth of your experience. I mean, I knew kind of. You're Joel Grey's daughter. You were also engaged to Johnny Depp, which we don't need to talk about, but you have a lot, in your history that went on. You were
There were a lot
married.
of ways, and I was the only one in the room
Yes,
many
yes.
times. That's why I don't know how to pick. How would you pick?
How would you pick? So then I read your book, your memoir, which Out of the Corner, incredible, amazing. I so in love with it. I'm going to read it again. Because that's what I do with books I love. But I read it, and then I decided to go back and watch the YouTube of your Dancing with the Stars win, which let me down a whole rabbit hole of all of your Dancing with the Stars routines.
So, weren't they so good? Like, I literally look at it, I'm like,
First
who
of all,
is
you're
that?
fucking
How?
hot. You're so hot.
It's crazy,
you're like
right?
tight. And I know you said they spray tanned you to death and like all the,
yeah.
And to know what you had to go through, like
and
on
my
a
stage
daily.
and my stage fright.
Yes, and your stage fright, and then there was the routine. It was the
terror of not being able to learn dance steps, which has been my dad actually has the same thing, and he's a very well-known dancer. But
yes,
that means that we're just really slow at learning. We have like learning issues around choreography, and so he gets to work on rehearsing a show. And it's just one dance. I mean, it's like one choreography. Mine was twice a week. I was like, this is impossible.
But it wasn't. I mean, and that's the main, like you said, it was hard for you to learn. But then you also talked about kind of going into, what does Beyonce call her alter ego? Sasha Fierce, where she like blacks out on stage. And
is that what she says?
Yeah. She says
she blacks out?
Yeah. And she doesn't remember anything that happens while she's up there.
I don't know ever. I never know what's happened until afterwards. When I didn't know that was a Sasha Fierce thing, but that's what I want to be.
Be Jennifer Fierce. Yes, or whatever. No, you have to have another first name. But yeah, that thing where you're just like your adrenaline goes, right? Because that's what I'm not saying one's adrenaline. I'm talking about you specifically, because you were saying the adrenaline went and you just went out there. Yeah.
The terror. The thing that I most was avoiding was actually the number one. Let me say that again without the beep in the middle. My terror was actually my secret weapon.
Yes.
Because the thing I was most avoiding was what I needed to be great. And it was the thing that I would avoid at all costs.
Wow. That's
intense.
Right there. That's some
hello. Right?
So just for anyone who missed it, like I did the first time when it actually aired, check her out. Go to YouTube. You have to read the book first, though, because it won't be as
you can do
impactful.
Whatever you want. Don't listen to her.
No. You have to read the book
Don't let
first.
her boss you around.
I'm bossing. You have to read the book first so that you can understand the journey it took to get to that moment. I'm starting to get teary again. Because it's serious.
It was impossible.
Impossible.
Yet I did it.
Yes. All right. Last thing.
Yes, ma'am.
I have 4 questions. Let me pick one of them.
Don't you regret having done that first question about studying for a test now?
No, because it set us up for everything else.
Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't waste all our time. Okay, go ahead.
You're so funny. All right. So it feels like Out of the Corner was an instant New York Times bestseller.
It was.
As an author with her own memoir coming out next year, tell me what it takes to make that happen.
I never, ever, ever once thought about what would happen when it was done. I only thought about writing something that was so deeply honest that I could leave with my daughter as an owner's manual, so that she would not have to live out unconsciously traumas or experiences that I had gone through in her before she existed, because there is that generational trauma that can be passed down and then they get acted out. And I thought, I just want to make sure when I leave this world, she has the most definitive accounting of what happened to her mother throughout her life to the best of her ability when I wrote it, so that I think more about caring about her than about hurting people's feelings, than about people not liking me. And that I knew my aim was true, to just tell only what was necessary and germane, because there was so much that is not in this book that is juicy or whatever. It
Yeah.
was superfluous. What was important was seeing the concentric circles of generations of how my grandparents and my mother and my father and their stories, how they folded into me, and how I will fold in with my ex-husband into my daughter's story.
Yeah.
And to hopefully help her have more, a more deep and true understanding of what her nervous system and her unconscious is holding, so that she can be freer and more less acting out as she possibly can.
Mm-hmm. So, but what kind of work did it take to make it?
It took basically being confused and doubting myself all the time, and recognizing that I just need to say, what is this about? Where, letting the story tell me what needed to be told, so that I was not running the show. I was just doing it wrong and badly, wrong and badly, wrong and badly, little better, little better, and then rewriting it. And then, really recognizing that your voice is the only one of you that will ever be. And nobody has had your exact journey to this point. And so therefore it is fully authentic and individual and original, because your life has been unfolding for your transformation. And how, if you look at your life with the idea of, wow, this is all happening for me, and if I hadn't had that, then I wouldn't have had this, and I wouldn't have learned that. And that it's not about getting or looking good or getting more stuff or any of the outside stuff. It's all about, how free can I get myself?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. That's just what I think.
No, I love that. I love that. I love that to be the purpose of it. And
it's really for you.
Yes. It's really,
and if
for
you
me.
keep it for you and for your kid and what your values are, because I knew that, I thought to myself, how can I be known for the phrase, nobody puts baby in a corner, for the rest of my life? I will die and they will say, well, somebody finally put baby in a corner. Or like, I don't know what they'll say, what the headline would be. And the idea that I actually saw myself as having been put in corners. And I thought, that is not okay. And so I thought, how can I look at my narrative in ways where I didn't feel so powerless, where I could see my part in how I was the key player in my story, and that I was either bringing things on or somehow it was always coming out like this.
Yeah. Yes. So, Jennifer Gray, we are at the end. Tell me where people can find you.
Probably in my house, because I'm not.
But Winnie's there. Winnie's not letting anybody in.
They can find me. You mean on social?
Yeah, like if they want to follow you.
My Instagram is Jennifer_Gray, Grey on Instagram, and I'm on Twitter as Jennifer @JenniferGray, and I'm on Facebook as me. And aside from that, they'll probably find me, at the grocery store, just hanging out, trying to do my best work as just, doing my part, trying to make sure that we can right this ship in the ways that it seems to be going off. Just waiting for marching orders. That's all I'm doing. It's like, okay, what are my marching orders today?
Yeah, I love that. The book again is called Out of the Corner. It is Jennifer Gray's memoir. It spans basically her entire life. There goes that earpiece.
And before my life.
And before your life, yes. Yes.
I hope I can't wait to see what you did with your book.
You'll see soon.
It just takes enormous courage and gentleness with yourself to not be perfect, and let yourself be messy, and let yourself not know where it's going, so that you can bring in higher some higher power
Yes.
to be your co-writer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I love this conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you for making sure.
Me too. I want to hang out. Let's hang out.
We will.
Yeah, we will. That'll be great. Thank you, Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Gray. I'm the only one who feels more comfortable in the corner.